Good afternoon. My name is Mark Lazelle. I'm the business website director at Healy Consultants Group PLC based in Singapore. This afternoon, I have with me one of my colleagues. She's the Senior Client Engagements Manager, Grace Odhiambo, and she's based in our office in Johor Bahru in Malaysia. Good afternoon, Grace.
Hi, Mark. It's a pleasure to talk to you again this afternoon.
And likewise to you, Grace, and I hope life is going well there in Malaysia in the current circumstances.
As good as it could be.
Understood.
Yeah.
We're going to talk today a little bit about Malaysia in general, a little bit about some of the Malaysian work you guys have been doing over the past year or so. Obviously, 2020 was a difficult year on a global scale for all of us. Would you like to just take me through a little bit about life in Malaysia during 2020 and how that impacted your work in our Johor Bahru office and any impacts it had on the client engagements?
Okay, so last year, I think around March, it was beginning of March, when the first movement control order was implemented in, I think, the entire country. So we had to adjust because we had to work from home, and there was very strict regulations on the roads. We couldn't go to the office if we didn't have like a letter from the office saying that we need to do certain things from the office, but only for a short while. And then, so we would technically go to the office maybe once or twice in a week just to collect mail because obviously courier companies were still working. And we had to get our mail. Sometimes we had to get mail from clients or mail from banks, and this had to be then sent off to the respective people. But other than that, seeing as Healy is basically an e-commerce company, so we didn't really have it didn't really have an effect on our work because work went on as usual.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Would you say that the regulatory authorities, the tax authorities, the banks, the company registrar, and all those sorts of authorities in Malaysia, did you feel that during 2020, you were able to complete formalities, pretty much the same way as you pre-COVID, or how do you feel that went?
I think the government tried as much as possible to cope with the situation because they did offer extensions on tax filings for most companies, for all companies actually.
Yeah.
There was those who had like loans had a moratorium so they could defer their payments. Getting to the actual offices was impossible. So we had to make an appointment. If you had to visit the government offices, you had to have an appointment. And that was the only difficult part. But other than that, setting up companies was as usual. You just submit the application through our secretaries. The problem was not really with the government. The problem was with working with our usual suppliers who were also working from home and knowing that they couldn't access the portal. And also the portals were sort of temporarily shut down and then up and running again, but with a huge backlog. So depending on what the client wanted, we don't usually get a lot of inquiries for setting up businesses in Malaysia.
Yeah.
But depending on what the client was asking for, things were working as usual, but with extended timelines to submit documents, to submit tax returns, annual returns. Yeah, so I think we managed with the situation as it was.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, under normal circumstances, there's a freedom of travel. People can get on aeroplanes and come and visit Malaysia if they need to complete any formalities. Obviously, 2020 was a year in which that was not possible. Did that impact you at all? Were any clients unable to visit, and did that create any issues? Or again, were you able to provide workaround solutions to that?
This did actually affect business because, as you know, we open a lot of offshore bank accounts for our clients. And with Malaysia, most banks require face-to-face meeting with their clients before they open their accounts. So considering the clients couldn't visit Malaysia, and the only banks that could actually open accounts without the client visiting the bank were also rejecting applications because Bank Negara had recently issued some kind of audit on most banks and was asking questions like, why is this company having a bank account in Malaysia and it's not doing business in Malaysia? So with those kind of questions, then the banks were coming back to us and saying, no, we cannot have this client anymore. So you need to ask your client to open a bank account elsewhere. So it got really messy in terms of that, but also in terms of the clients could not visit other banks in Malaysia to open accounts. So this was a negative impact on our business.
Sure.
Yeah.
Against this background, this very challenging background, Grace, you completed an engagement for a client in Malaysia fairly recently. Would you mind just sharing with us a little bit about the client and the type of business they're in and why they chose to set up a company in Malaysia at this time?
Okay. I had a client who initially had set up a business in Hong Kong. And their business is they distribute and wholesale unlocked cell phones and electronics such as iPhones and other phones, Nokia, Samsung, and other types of electronics. So this is a company that has been set up in the US for over 15 years, and they were looking to tap into the Southeast Asian market. So initially, when they approached Healy Consultants, we recommended that they set up a company in Hong Kong and an offshore company. So then we would open a bank account for them either in Singapore or Malaysia or any other of the Southeast Asian countries. So they did set up the company in Hong Kong, and we did submit the applications for bank accounts, and it was going well with the Malaysia bank accounts until the audit with the Bank Negara happened, which sort of messed up the engagement, and the client actually asked us whether it would be easier if they set up a company in Malaysia to open a bank account in Malaysia. So then we asked the banks, and they were like, yeah, if they want to have a bank account in Malaysia and they set up a business in Malaysia, this would be very easy. So that's what we did. We set up their business, and within a month, I believe, the account had been opened and running. So it was quite easy to set up the business and to open the bank account because both were in Malaysia. The company was in Malaysia and the bank account was open in Malaysia.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to clarify that most banks now in Malaysia require proof of business in Malaysia. And also in most cases, they want to see like a lease agreement so that they know that you have an office here and will employ staff here. So it's easier that way for them to open a bank account for you.
Okay, very good, Grace. Thank you for your time. That's really interesting. And no doubt we'll be hearing from you again really soon about other engagements in Malaysia. And we hope that the situation in Malaysia improves over the next few weeks and months, and that we can come and visit you in JB as well. Yeah,
sure. You're most welcome to visit anytime.
Okay.
Bring more business as you come.
Indeed we will.
Yes.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye.